When a racist white woman is trapped inside a burning home, it's a brave black firefighter who risks his life to save hers. But instead of gratitude, her reaction stuns everyone. What follows is a powerful journey that will challenge your beliefs, stir your emotions, and leave you speechless. Stay with us as this unforgettable story unfolds, because sometimes the fire we need to face burns deep within. The air was thick with smoke, a choking gray veil that swallowed the quaint cobblestone streets of Saint-Émilie, a small town nestled in the rolling vineyards of southern France. It was March 26, 2025, a crisp spring evening that had started like any other, until the flames erupted. The old wooden house on Rue des Lilas, with its peeling white paint and sagging shutters, had stood for over a century. Now it was a roaring inferno, the fire licking at the sky like a beast unleashed. Inside, Margaret Hensley screamed, a 58-year-old British expatriate who'd moved to Saint-Émilie a decade ago to escape the chaos of multiculturalism, as she often put it. Margaret was no stranger to controversy in the tight-knit community. Her sharp tongue and unapologetic disdain for anyone who didn't fit her narrow definition of proper had earned her few friends. She'd once called the town's Moroccan grocer a filthy invader in the middle of the market square, and her rants about preserving European purity were the stuff of local legend. But tonight, none of that mattered. Tonight, she was trapped. The fire had started in the kitchen, a forgotten pot of oil on the stove, a careless mistake after a glass too many of Bordeaux. By the time Margaret noticed, the flames had already claimed the ground floor. She'd stumbled upstairs, coughing and cursing, only to find the staircase collapsing behind her. Now, pinned against the bedroom window, she pounded on the glass, her voice hoarse as she shouted for help. Below, a crowd gathered, their faces illuminated by the orange glow. The volunteer fire brigade screeched to a halt, sirens blaring. Among them was Jamal Carter, a 32-year-old black firefighter who'd moved to France from London 5 years earlier. Tall, broad-shouldered, and calm under pressure, Jamal was a quiet hero in Saint-Émilie. Though he'd faced his share of sideways glances and muttered slurs, he didn't care. He'd joined the brigade to save lives, not to win approval. "Get the ladder up," Jamal barked, his voice cutting through the chaos. His team sprang into action, hoisting the metal rungs toward the second-story window. Smoke poured out, and Margaret's silhouette was barely visible, her white blouse now streaked with soot. She was coughing violently, her hands clawing at the frame. Jamal climbed fast, his boots ringing against the ladder. The heat was unbearable, the roar of the fire deafening. He reached the window, smashed it with his axe, and leaned in. Margaret's blue eyes widened, locking onto his face, and then narrowed in a flash of recognition. Even through the haze, her expression twisted into something ugly. "You," she rasped, her voice dripping with venom. "I'd rather die than let your kind touch me." And the words hit Jamal like a slap, but he didn't flinch. He'd heard worse. "Ma'am, you don't have a choice," he said, his tone steady but firm. "Take my hand, or you're not making it out." For a moment, she hesitated, her pride warring with her survival instinct. The floor beneath her groaned, splintering under the fire's relentless advance. With a guttural scream, she lunged forward, gripping his arm. Jamal hauled her through the jagged window, her body limp against his as he carried her down the ladder. The crowd below watched in stunned silence, their murmurs dying as they caught the tail end of her outburst. When they reached the ground, Jamal set her down gently, stepping back as paramedics rushed in. Margaret coughed, clutching an oxygen mask to her face, her blonde hair matted with ash. Then she looked up at him. The crowd held its breath, expecting gratitude, maybe even an apology. Instead, she spat on the ground near his boots. "I didn't need you," she hissed, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Any white man could have done it better." A gasp rippled through the onlookers. Jamal's jaw tightened, but he said nothing, turning to help his crew douse the flames. The townspeople stared, some in disbelief, others in quiet shame. It was a moment that would have ended there, a bitter footnote in Saint-Émilie's history, except for what happened next. The next morning, Saint-Émilie buzzed with a different kind of heat. The fire was out, leaving behind a charred skeleton of Margaret's house. But her words had ignited something else, a storm of outrage and whispers that swept through the town like a mistral wind. By noon, a shaky video of the rescue, captured by a teenager in the crowd, had hit X. The clip was short but damning. Margaret's venomous outburst, Jamal's stoic silence, and the crowd's stunned reaction. The caption read, "Racism doesn't burn away, even in a fire." Within hours, it had thousands of views, retweets, and comments, some defending Jamal, others spewing vitriol that echoed Margaret's own. Jamal saw it all from the fire station, where he sat polishing his gear. His phone buzzed incessantly, messages from friends, colleagues, even strangers calling him a hero. He didn't feel like one. He felt tired of the stares, the assumptions, the need to prove himself twice over just to be seen as human. He'd faced racism before, growing up in London, then here in France, but last night stung deeper. He'd risked his life, and she'd spat on it. "ASC. You okay, mate?" asked Pierre, a wiry French firefighter with a mop of dark hair sliding onto the bench beside him. Jamal nodded, forcing a smile. "Yeah, just need a minute." Pierre studied him, then sighed. "She's a piece of work, that one. Don't let it get to you." "It's not her," Jamal said, though it partly was. "It's everything." Pierre clapped him on the shoulder. "You're a better man than me. I'd have left her up there." Jamal chuckled despite himself. "No, you wouldn't." Meanwhile, across town, Margaret sat in a borrowed room at the local inn, wrapped in a borrowed robe, her hands trembling as she sipped tea. The innkeeper, a stout woman named Claire, had been kind enough to take her in, but Margaret could feel the judgment in every glance. Her phone lay silent. No one had called. Not her daughter in London. Not her old friends from Kent. She'd burned those bridges long ago with her bitterness. Now, alone with the ashes of her life, she replayed the night in her mind. The fire, the smoke, that man pulling her out. Her stomach twisted. She'd meant every word she'd said, hadn't she? Yet the memory of his steady grip, the way he hadn't hesitated, gnawed at her. By afternoon, the story had spread beyond Saint-Émilie. A local journalist interviewed witnesses, and the headline hit the web. "Woman saved by black firefighter spits racism in his face." Comments poured in, some calling for her to be shunned, others decrying woke culture. Margaret's name became a lightning rod, a symbol of Europe's simmering racial tensions. In the town square, people argued. Old Monsieur Dupont, who'd fought in Algeria, shook his head. "She's a fool, but she's not wrong about keeping things pure." Across from him, young Sophie, a barista, snapped, "Pure? This isn't 1940. Wake up." That evening, Jamal walked home through the vineyards, the sun dipping low. He stopped by the river, watching the water ripple. He didn't want the attention. He just wanted to do his job. But as he stood there, a figure approached. Margaret, her face pale, her coat pulled tight. He tensed. I need to say something, she began, her voice brittle. Jamal crossed his arms. Go ahead. She swallowed hard. I don't like you. I don't like your kind. But you saved me. And She stopped, her lips trembling. I don't know what to do with that. He stared at her, the weight of her words hanging between them. You don't have to like me, he said finally. Just don't make it my problem. She flinched, then nodded stiffly and walked away. Jamal exhaled, unsure what had just happened or what it meant. Days turned into weeks, and the incident lingered like smoke. Margaret kept to herself, avoiding the market, the cafe, the church. But the town wouldn't let her fade. Graffiti appeared on the inn's wall. Racist hag. And Claire, torn between pity and disgust, asked her to leave. With nowhere else to go, Margaret rented a tiny flat above the butcher's shop, paid for with the last of her savings. She spent her days staring out the window, watching life go on without her. One morning, a package arrived. No note, just a worn paperback. To Kill a Mockingbird. She scoffed, tossing it aside. But boredom won out, and she read it, page by grudging page. Atticus Finch's quiet decency irritated her, yet it stuck. She didn't want it to. Jamal, meanwhile, threw himself into work. The brigade praised him, but he brushed it off. At night, he'd sit with his sister Aisha on video calls recounting the mess. She's broken, bruv, Aisha said. Doesn't mean you fix her. He knew she was right, but something about Margaret's halting words by the river nagged at him. Not gratitude, confusion, like she'd glimpsed a crack in her own walls. Then came the flood. A spring storm burst the riverbanks, swamping Saint-Émilie. The brigade mobilized, Jamal at the helm. Homes flooded, cars floated away. In the chaos, he found himself at Margaret's flat. She was trapped again, water rising fast. He waded in, pulling her out as she clung to him, silent this time. No venom, just fear. On dry ground, she muttered, "Thank you," so soft he almost missed it. The town rebuilt, and Margaret didn't vanish. She started small, buying bread from the Moroccan baker, avoiding her usual glares. People noticed. At the annual fete, she showed up, standing awkwardly at the edge. Jamal saw her, their eyes meeting briefly. She nodded, a tiny gesture, but there. By summer, Margaret volunteered at the library, reading to kids, brown faces among them. She didn't preach or apologize, but she listened. Jamal kept saving lives, his quiet strength unchanged. They never spoke again, not directly. Yet when a new family, Syrian refugees, moved in, Margaret left a basket of bread on their step. No one saw, but word spread. Years later, Jamal found a letter in his locker, her handwriting shaky. I was wrong. Not about everything, but about you. Live well. He folded it away, unsure what to feel. Margaret died that winter, alone but not despised. At her grave, someone left lilacs, unsigned. Saint-Émilie moved on, its scars fading. Racism didn't vanish. It never would. But in one corner of Europe, two souls shifted, just enough to prove heroes wear no color, and even stone hearts can crack. What lingered wasn't closure, but a question. Could she have gone further? Could we?